Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Fearless Floyd Show. As always, I am your host, Fearless Floyd. Today is Tuesday, December 24th, 2024. This is a pre-recorded video. However, from the title, you see this is the Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis story, fondly known more in the popular era as Jackie O. Before that, she was the First Lady, Jackie Kennedy. I'm very humbled, proud to be able to have this opportunity to present to you Noel Benoist, former NSA whistleblower, Majestic 12 member, Man in Black. Absolutely, you heard me, Man in Black. And to tell his story from his own life experiences, his own knowledge, because what we have here is you're getting it firsthand. You're getting information that's not, if it is in the public, it's not out there everywhere. But some of the things that I'm hearing them for the first time. You may as well. Whether the videos gain any traction or not, who knows? But what this series is with Noel is I am co-authoring a book with Noel. So as we document each one of these topics, that will be a specific chapter in the book, which let me show you. Here's the name of the book, The Pedagogy of Noel. That's your new word, pedagogy, which means the life of. There you go. New word. Hope I educated you. The book you saw on that banner is the 200-year plan. That book was co-authored by Noel, as well as the late FBI whistleblower, Ted Gunderson, which may be a more familiar name to your knowledge and research than Noel is. But I'll show you the banner again so you can see that it obviously has two authors, Ted Gunderson and basically what they lay forth in that book is the 200-year plan for the shadow government, deep state, however you want to label it, blankly categorize it, their 200-year plan, they're going to take over and how they want to take over. So I look forward to that. I don't know why there's such a glare behind me over here when there shouldn't be. That's odd. I'll go fix that. I know why. I don't have a counter light. There we go. That's why. Lighting. Bad me. As you saw at the very beginning of the video, don't forget to go to the description below this video and nominate my good friend, Dr. Ed Group, to join Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s U.S. Department of Health and Human Services staff to make America healthy again. Dr. Ed Group. Let me show you that little thumbnail. There you go. Don't forget to do that. And mushroom therapy. I'll have the girls on very soon. We're going to also do individual videos for each product. So if you want to know more about one specific product that you just can't get in some of these appearances they do on other people's shows, as well as my show, we'll have individual videos where we'll break all that down for you. So I'll look forward to having that. And this is what you need to do. People, pets, dogs, cats, as well as livestock. We have some product called mush puppies mush puppies and mush ponies. Ponies are for the equine horses, Shetland ponies, that ilk. And as you saw, 12 days of Christmas. So beginning Christmas Day, December 25th, I will have some type of special that I will run for 12 days. First day on the 25th, I will have be one item. The next day on the 26th will be two items, just like the song says. 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves, and a partridge in a pear tree. So we'll get all the way up to the 6th, Epiphany Day, in which I will offer a package that has 12 different items in it. So I look forward to getting all that together. This is what this the thumbnail, the banner looks like. So look for that. It will run every day for those 12 days. So if you miss, if you don't see something you like in the first 6 days, wait, be patient. You may see something up into the 11th and 12th, Epiphany Eve or Epiphany Day. However, if something still doesn't catch your fancy and you saw something back on day 3, go back and get it. It'll still be available. Look forward to that. All right. And I have Noel backstage, and he looks like he is ready to go, chomping at the bit to tell you more stories about the Kennedys. Jackie O. I don't even know if we're going to go into the whole Onassis part of Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis's life. I don't even know if we're going to digress into JFK Jr., the plane crash. There's no telling how long we will go. And with that, I will be right back with the Honorable former NSA whistleblower, former Majestic 12, former Man in Black, Noel Benoist. Stay tuned, folks. And it won't let me pause, and I don't know why. And I have the pleasure of bringing on to the stage Noel Benoist. How you doing, Noel?
I'm breathing, so it's a good day.
It is. It is. Actually, today is Christmas Eve, December 24th, 2024. So,
How about that
because,
number?
yeah, well, that's technology for you.
There you go.
Yeah,
I used to light a fire in the fireplace to keep Santa warm.
right. All right. Well, I've done the introduction. Today, we're going to talk about Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Mainly, we're going to talk about just the Bouvier, which is her maiden name, Bouvier Kennedy years. Not going to really delve into the Onassis part of it. So, with further ado, Noel, the stage is yours. Jacqueline Kennedy.
Yeah, well, Jackie was as basically a really good advisor and in many ways, I think a stabilizer for John. And I think she was a pretty big influence on the entire Kennedy family. And so, had things not happened the way they did, I think she had a lot to contribute to the world and everything. But when everything happened to her, I mean, you love your husband and all of a sudden his blood and brains are on you. That'll throw you for a loop. And I don't think there are too many people that could basically get through that as well as she did. And she realized the threat to all of the Kennedy family. And I think that she knew that they maybe had good idea that she was more informed than a lot of people knew. And so her thing with Onassis and stuff was more of a protection agreement. He really cared for her, but he would do or not do whatever she said, pretty much. And so she went there for protection because Onassis was powerful enough in both worlds that basically MJ12 didn't want to mess with him. He had enough power and everything to really basically make life difficult for MJ12, and that'd be kind of like starting a World War III without a real prize in the balance or whatever. And so that's how she ended up going the way she went. And, a lot of people might say, well, it was some bad judgment or whatever, but they weren't in her position. Sometimes a bad judgment is better than a judgment that is totally bad, ending in death, and who knows what else. So she went that way, and that kind of put the boys on notice. And so and actually, in some ways, they kind of cooled their heels for a little while. And then basically, once Onassis, matter of fact, if people really look at it, once Onassis died, they weren't really going after some of the mob figures the way they could until after Onassis died. And after Onassis died, then they kind of marched on toward trying to diffuse the mob and the mob influence and power in the world. And that's the thing about MJ12, and thing that people really need to realize. And number one, satanic influence is real, spiritual things are real, and by no means is Satan stupid. And he does inspire or give revelations, so to speak, to those who follow him. The end result is they pay more than I would ever want to pay for doing or having what they have here on earth. And the rest of it, it's like you never pay off your debt after that. So the people have got to realize that there are some, so to speak, unbelievable ideas that people will come up with. And I actually recognized that early. And that's why I actually told MJ12, before I knew how bad they were. I was basically dealing with most of the intel people. Matter of fact, it started pretty much. The Czechoslovakian crisis was going on. The first thing that happened that was a big one was the first airline hijacking. And I think that was in the 67, 68 era. And I told them, put our guys in uniforms, get them as close as you can and take them down. I said, these terrorist people have got to realize it's a death penalty. Otherwise, they're going to increase in power, numbers, and we will pay with thousands of lives later. And of course, that's when I believed that we were doing things for right way, right reason, etc. I didn't realize that actually MJ12 wanted the terrorists to grow. The more the threat grew, the more the justification for MJ12. And that has carried through. It carried through into VA. The Veterans Administration basically shafted a lot of vets, and they were putting claims that should be approved the same day on a shelf because they built their own backlog. And the larger their backlog, the larger the crew they have. And the larger the crew they have, the larger the budget they have. And consequently, the larger salary for the main director and assistant director. And so that philosophy it filtered down to other areas by way of people who knew pretty much what was going on. So they encouraged all of that. They fed all of that to a controllable degree, but also to a degree that was disastrous for a lot of people. And really didn't need to happen. It's kind of, as a matter of fact, we got a coin, a head and a tail. And Jesus used the example, we're made to be the head, not the tail. And quite frankly, the tail handles the poop and it stinks. And that's a good analogy for the evil. What Kennedy wanted to do would have worked, and the head would have been great. And, a head can look pretty good. And what they wanted to do, MJ12, is just, it's the exact opposite of the coin. And the results is the opposite. It's in many ways indescribably evil, because these people, they got involved with, they made allegiances and alliances with the Church of Satan and satanic garbage. And I've got some of the stuff in a book. I mean, these people have been going to satanic worships and satanic celebrations and everything. And the thing is, the whole government knew they were out there. The probation departments and law investigative departments got the satanic calendar every year. So they would know what celebrations the satanic group was going through. And if there was a kidnapping or whatever, or a child disappearance, they knew pretty much it was going to the satanic group. But the trouble is, MJ12 was involved with all of that. And a lot of kidnapped children were kidnapped by agents of MJ12 and sold to some of those groups. And all the evil they did, well, we get big money for it. We got to have money off the books in order to fight communism. They have got more excuses, and if a person really thinks about it, the evil of buying and selling children to be killed, sacrificed, body parts to be sold, quite frankly, a communist regime in Russia was never as evil as that. The Hitler regime, that's a different story. Him and his Gestapo and stuff like that, they would take a baby away from a woman, throw the baby in the air head first down on the pavement, and basically try to get the woman to totally lose it. And then they would just take her and use her for their sex toy. And that's about the only regime I know that was as evil as MJ12. And I think they got some of their ideas from some of that stuff. But Jackie was smart enough to know enough to be able to, number one, trust her husband, know what he was really doing. She was behind him enough to support him, just like when I told Donald Trump we needed him to run because he could finance his own campaign and owe nobody anything. The only debt he would have would be to the American people to be a good leader. And he said, well, he would have to talk to the family. And I told him, I said, it'll be dangerous. You're going to need God's protection. And he is enough of a husband that he wouldn't say yes until he talked it over with the family. And he took some time. We started working on him in 2011. We gave him a copy of our joint intel report, encouraged him to run. And then I would follow up. And after they killed Ted, I let him know they killed Ted. And I told him, I said, that's how dangerous it is, but we really need you. And I let it roll for like 2012, 13, 14. And then kind of let him see things going on. And then in 2015, I kind of a little bit stronger. I said, hey, you're the only one that can do the job. You can finance your own campaign, owe nobody anything. You can be faithful and loyal to America as a good American. And I believe that God has called you to do it. If you make a covenant with God, what you're going to have to do, you're going to have to get your life straight, make a covenant with God, and because you're going to need his protection. And then God will protect you, and our people will give you a landslide victory. And I told him, I said, you got a chance to go down in history in a very great way. And I think that's where he got some of his statements when he told people he'll be the greatest president in history. And he finally agreed, but he talked to the family first, and the family was behind him. So Laura and Don Jr. and Melania, they all joined in the same way that the Kennedy family joined in. Fortunately, thank God, Melania has not had to experience what Jackie had to experience. But no matter what Jackie did after Kennedy's death, personally, my hats are off to her. I feel for her. And she went through stuff that I don't think any human being on earth would ever want to go through. She knew the danger. And basically, she toughed it out, so to speak. You know, sometimes in life, you just got to be thankful for the breath you draw. You're still alive, which means there's a chance that tomorrow might be better. And I teach people nowadays that the good thing about a bad day is it helps you appreciate the good days. Because then when something good does happen, you're like, oh, yeah, man, I needed that. Wow, yeah, this is a good day. You know, and I hope and pray that Jackie had as many good days as possible. And one thing about it, I've seen heaven. Jackie and John are in heaven. So I know they're having a whole bunch of good days now. And that's absolute. That's positive. So, you know, and other than that, there wasn't really a lot other than basically Jackie navigating and, of course, teaching John. And I think she taught John enough that he said he would never run for president. But with his magazine, George, and with all of the contacts he had, actually, that's why they basically got rid of him, because he was posed perfectly to make a run for president and to win. And that's one thing, too, that MJ12, they watch that stuff. And they watch people who are posed perfectly to be a president, and they'll visit the individual and let them know what it's going to be according to their view. With Donald, they couldn't do that. I mean, he got a visitation and he's like, hey, you want to fight? I'm in. I'm a fighter. And he's got the resources to do it. And so with him, they just figured that they would flood him and that they were going to win that election. But God had myself and people who listened to me ready for a little surprise. And that's what I try to get Washington to realize. So many times I've quoted that quote, loose lips sink ships. And even Donald falls prey to it once in a while, like the stuff with politics is like a golf game or a basketball game or whatever. And there's been more than once I told him, Donald, man, you know, I mean, some of the things he said that people didn't like that were rough statements about somebody, people got to realize that New Yorkers love the bantering. And we used to, when I was a kid, we got involved in like cutting each other down. But we did it as a humorous thing, and we didn't do it in a malicious way until a couple of people kind of get their feelings got hurt. And we realized that some people didn't realize that we were just, you know, kidding around and not meaning to be malicious. And so we apologized and we kind of toned it down a little. But in New York, they're raised with making cutting statements. Oh, haha, you got me on that one. And I mean, statements like, I'll cut you so low you'll have to climb a ladder to kiss the behind of a snake, you know. And that was the atmosphere that he was raised in. So basically, being a statesman, a politician, and a president is definitely a learning curve for him too. But when it comes to encouraging people and really appreciating good work, and when it comes to being a friend, he is good as gold. I mean, you know, I'd even say platinum. And he's curved a little bit, you know, he's he's learning a little. And so if people will kind of open up their understanding number one, they're not going to have to go through what Jackie went through. But if they don't open their understanding, and if they don't basically reach out and work with what we've got to work with that will work, then they could be going through what Jackie went through, because they'd be losing sons, daughters. But these guys, MJ12, if a family has a genius child and MJ12 is involved, they will be doing just like Hitler did. They will come and take that child and tell the parents, your child belongs to us now. We're going to raise them and make out of them what we want them to be. And if they ever saw that child again after they finished with them, the parents would not recognize him. They would literally say, man, that's not our child. And that's what happened with a lot of people in Germany when they lost their children. And the Germans got so bad, that's why they would take a baby away from a woman, throw that baby up in the air, head first on the ground, and the woman would see her child killed right in front of her eyes. And I am praying that America wakes up. I have spent over 55 years trying to wake America up, and it's been a sacrifice. I had to leave my wife and children to keep them alive because I knew what MJ12 would do to them. So I basically had to make MJ12 believe that I didn't love them enough for MJ12 to do anything that would have an effect on me. And that kept my family alive. And God gave me a chance to explain that to him later. And believe you me, when I was explaining it to him, there was a lot of tears. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. I could stand up in front of machine gun fire easier than when I had to do that. I used to go by the turnoff the road that went to the place where they lived. When my brother and I inherited the home from my mom, I gave my brother my half of the home on a condition that the family could stay there, and that was the only way they could actually get benefits too, like AFDC or whatever, because the VA declared that my disabilities were congenital. I went in the Army in excellent physical condition, but all of a sudden I've got congenital from birth defects, and it was an oxymoron. And so I knew to get them taken care of, I couldn't be there. And if I did stay there, I knew that if MJ really wanted to go after me, my family they'd kill them in a way that they either blame it on me, look like I did it, or in a way that would just kind of like blow Jackie's mind, it would blow my mind. That's the kind of people that MJ12 are. I wouldn't even call them people. I call them, that's the kind of demon-possessed beings that MJ12 become as they move into that seat. And actually, they sign a contract with Satan when they become one of those seats. They had me sign a contract, empowered for life, but they didn't say it was with Satan. And that gave me a legal loophole. I thought I was signing on to serve God and country. And that's why then God provided a way for me to break the contract. And they said, you signed a contract for life. You know, that's when they said they'd use my brain in a jar and they'd use me in a wheelchair. And that's why I told them, no, you won't. And they said, we'll reinforce the contract. I said, no, you won't. And I said, not only that, I said, you didn't tell me I was signing a contract with Satan. And they would reveal that the contract was with Satan when you went through a ceremony to take one of the 12 seats. And I wasn't going there. And of course, Satan throws the thought in your mind, in my mind, well, if you go there in a very short period of time, you'll be number one, and then you can change the whole thing and make it good. The thing is, the stuff you do getting there, a person would be turned over to a reprobate, no salvation, before they ever hit seat number one. So, but that's the stuff that's the way the devil works, and that's the way people serving the devil work. They promise you this big, beautiful, wonderful promise, and they give you the manure that may have been planted by it. And that's about it.
For some reason, it's 56 degrees, partly sunny in Houston, and my electricity's flickering for some reason.
That's the spiritual stuff. Spiritual power.
Yeah.
And boy,
So
I have plenty of the evidence of it.
if I freeze up or something wonky's happening on my end, StreamYard automatically has the feed, so it'll continue recording. So don't stop on your end, even though I'm not here.
Yeah. Yep. We just send the Holy Spirit through those circuits there.
Well, my whole router reset, so I didn't have any Wi-Fi, so I'm disconnected from the recording, but you're still recording.
Cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right. So while you were talking, I popped up the Wikipedia on Jackie. So, yeah, basically talking about everything. So obviously she's a very educated lady.
Yeah.
Came from a good family.
Yeah, Bouviers were fairly prominent in Europe. And the Benoist with the OIST are actually prominent. And matter of fact, a lot of people don't know it. I'll say it again. If the person's name is Benoist, OIST,
Right.
that came from Benjamin of the tribe of Benjamin. And all of the Benoists are related to one another and to Benjamin himself. The OIT came somewhere between 1495 and 1515 when a French emperor and a German emperor married an empress from the other country. And the German wanted to have influence in France. The French wanted to have influence in Germany. So consequently, pommes frites is French fries. Papier is the same in both languages. And orange is the same in both languages. They took the phone away from German, and the royalty phones purchased the right to keep it. So then phone became a sign of royalty. S in the name Benoist became a sign of royalty. And the OIT had to have an accent over the I in order to be pronounced Benoist.
Okay. Ha. Wow.
History.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Bouvier family over here, and their connections are connected to the Vanderbilt family.
Yeah.
And they worked on Wall Street. So, yeah, they were definitely prominent. Inherited $250,000 to equivalent to $4 million today, which he lost some of it in the Wall Street cash of 1929.
Right.
Wow. There you go. All right. Jackie O. So, did you have any interactions with the former First Lady preceding JFK?
No, not directly. I mean, I knew some of her history, and of course, JFK met her when he was in the Senate, et cetera, going for Senate and all that. And I knew some of the history of the family. Matter of fact, it's kind of like Bouvier was a pretty good family on this side,
Right.
and that's why they had some of the information and knowledge, because then they were sort of the family that was the opposite of the Bilderberg.
Okay.
And it's kind of like Soros today, and then doggone it, our boy that had Tesla,
Musk. Elon.
yeah, Elon Musk. So Soros on the bad side, and then Elon Musk on the good side. It's kind of like that influence is carried down through with various families. It's like there's a good influential family and a bad influential family that just maintains as we go through time.
Right.
And the bad influential family will be leading anybody bad that wants to be influential. And the good influential family will be basically an example leading some of the ones who want to be on the good side.
Okay, so while you were tenured at the NSA in Majestic 12, pretty much Jacqueline Onassis, she had uh, hooked up with Aristotle.
Right.
So were you concerned anymore with that side of the Kennedy family with just Jackie? I know you still were with Edward.
Yeah, I still I knew that basically I knew John was in danger before the plane accident, and I knew that basically Ted had been neutralized, and that's why basically he became a heavy drinker. He just kind of gave up, and so he would kind of bury his sorrows in the bottle. And at that point, basically Ted kind of just became the one song, and he would try to do some good once in a while to make up for some of his wine, women, and song attitude. You know, and Ted really too. He was too influenced by some of the DC attitude. Ted had a little bit of the DC attitude that he should be able to do it his way, and that's actually that was his downfall, because his way kind of led into a dead end right away. And so then after he found that out, he and then he, I told the candidates at the time, I told Ted and uh, Reagan and all of them, that basically that God showed me that the candidate who made the closest covenant with him would be elected by one of the greatest landslides ever. And if they keep their covenant, that the second election would be the greatest landslide ever to that point in time. And then when things went the way they did, and Reagan did what he did, opening the convention, I told him, I said, "You're the one." And then I told Ted Kennedy, I said, "Ted, I know you'd like to be the one. The trouble is you've got too much DC in you. You want to do the plan your way in God's name." And I said, the plan is not going to work unless it's people following God his way. We as humans are not smart enough to outsmart the devil.
Right.
And the thing is, that side is inspired by the devil. There's only one way we're going to beat MJ12, and that's basically through prayer and the Spirit leading. And I've got the knowledge about them, but I've also got the prayer connection, and I have headed them off not through my intelligence. I've headed them off and dead ended them so many times, but it has been through prayer. God had me do or say something they totally did not expect, and they weren't ready for it. That's the way we beat them.
Okay. Uh, Anything else you have on Jackie O?
And after she went with Onassis and stuff, she kind of just basically retired out of the scene and just tried to more or less have some facsimile of life from there on to try to just make it through, And there are a few people that ministered to her, I know, and so I think basically faith brought her around a little more, and she gave her a little more hope. I know more than one person told her, "Hey, Jack's in heaven. You'll be with him again there, and it'll be even better than on earth." And that's pretty much what she was hoping for.
Okay. Well, because when Aristotle died, she came back to New York and became an editor
Yeah.
at what, Cosmopolitan or something.
Right. Yep. Yep. And by then she gained a little more balance to where she could do that.
Right.
For a while there she couldn't do that. She wouldn't have achieved that. But by then she stabilized enough, more or less, to do something to get through this life. And that also helped her basically teach John, and that gave him more or less a platform to start his magazine, George.
Right. It
You know,
still
and
exists
his
today.
magazine, George, was like more politically targeted.
Yeah, absolutely. Still is.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and she supported him. You know, and she just basically let him know that, hey, you know, it's a dangerous walk. But she knew she couldn't make his choices for him. But it was MJ12 that took them down.
Hmm.
And the same way they tried to say that John Kennedy is still alive. And I looked into some of those reports, and there were a lot of people who believed he was still alive. And the damage to his brain and everything, there was no way he would be, if his body was alive, he'd be brain dead. But they worked on basically presenting a double. He was one of the double projects that they wanted to convince people. And actually, there's some people that met the double that believed John was still alive.
So is this a person
A double for JFK.
that has been surgically altered to look
Right.
like? Okay.
Right.
Not a synthetic, not a clone,
Yeah,
not
he's not a
somebody
synthetic clone.
mad.
Yeah, he was an imitator like me, doing comedy routines, impersonations, and he in. I met the guy at one time way back when, and knew where he went, and he really had a really good Kennedy imitation. He thought my imitation was good, and I thought his imitation was good. So
That's
yeah,
funny. Swapping stories.
yep. So, and at one time I could do a really good, I could do a voice, and if you had, like, say, a voice imprint deal,
Right.
my voice imprint would come out like Kennedy.
Right. Now, let
Yeah.
me ask you this. And I have no idea if you know or not. What was what was the intel community's outlook on JFK's proclivities of having extramarital affairs and Jackie's mm, reaction response, if she even knew? What did that look like? How did they
Well,
control her?
see, in actuality, JFK didn't have extramarital affairs. Every woman and guy he met with were agents that were bringing him intel on the mob and MJ12 connections, and especially Marilyn Monroe, because she did not have sex. It was too painful.
Right.
But
Yeah.
what happened is, when it started coming out as more of a disgrace and people started believing it, that's when Jackie said, hey, I don't mind what you're doing, but what you're doing is starting to bring disgrace on the name of the family.
Right.
And that's when he passed Marilyn off onto Bobby.
Okay.
So then they told Bobby's wife, hey, look, we got some stuff going on. There's going to be some stuff that'll look a little fishy. It's not fishy. And Jackie shared with Bobby's wife, they've got Jack meeting with Marilyn and having an affair. It has not been an affair. Marilyn has been doing something for the boys that she will continue to do, and we can't tell you about it. And she just told her, it's better you don't know, because if you know, you're in danger.
Right.
And so then Bobby's wife kind of turned her head the other way. And then Bobby came the guy, having extramarital affairs, and then they said, well, now it was getting too much for, like, people to start believing in the nation, and it was causing too much attention. That's why they wanted Marilyn to cool her heels for a while. And they said, look, we've got to just let everything chill. Let all the dust settle, take a break, And later on, we'll take a different approach and come at it from a different direction, and we'll get some more done. And Marilyn freaked out, afraid that they were using that as an excuse, and she was afraid they were going to basically let her get nailed by the mob. So she threatened to go to the press and tell the whole thing, and she was going to go tell all. And so then the mob heard she was going to go tell all, and so her protection was pulled, and they just let the mob have her.
Wow.
If she would have stayed solid, she'd be alive today.
Well, I don't know about that. She'd be an old woman.
Yeah, well, he almost stayed solid, and he went into witness protection, and I think he's alive today. I don't know if it's that preacher guy or not. I'd like to meet him and find out, but I do know that he was alive. So,
all right.
Did I send you a picture? I had a picture that had a time date stamp on it. I think it was like 2021 or something like that. Had a picture of Elvis and his gold records behind him. And it was when they let him meet his old girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him, I says, guys, let him have some life, man. Let him get together with his girlfriend. I mean, she wouldn't mind going into witness protection to be together with him again or whatever. And then, see what happens. And that's why I was able to come forward more too, because if I came forward, let's say if I came forward in 1970 and just came out with it and wasn't operating in the background, there's a good chance they would have gone after my family. 1980, they may have gone after my family.
Absolutely.
But now, and since I've been doing it from around, I stayed undercover with Reagan, but I came out more with Trump. And I went to D.C. for the first 2 months that he was in office. And so, because I figured, number one, my kids are grown and everything, and I just don't see anybody going after my family to try and get revenge on me. Plus, at this point, it would validate the fact that they're there. So that would then tell the whole nation, hey, look here, boom. The only move I see them doing is, number one, they're going to try and frame or kill Donald. They might try and frame me for murder. That's why those 2 needle marks were in my arm about almost a year ago. And they can keep that blood preserved, So basically, that's another reason I try to keep everything public too, so the public knows every minute what I'm doing. And that kind of precludes them from framing me for something. In 2 places at the same time.
Awesome. Well, I can't think of anything else to ask you regarding Jackie O. Can you? You have anything else?
She's a little bit of a shorter story. She stayed in the backdrop and had her, her areas. And then, of course, Robert's wife is a totally short story.
Right.
She was his wife. Story's done.
Yeah.
She
stuck to the script.
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And of course, they tried to embarrass Ted some more. When they had the thing with his one of his relatives, and they had the thing on the beach where allegedly a girl was raped or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, the cousin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually turned out to be true. He actually
some of that, but that was set up too. And I'm not too sure, but what if the gal was basically paid by MJ12 to kind of lead him into it and get him out of control and handle it or whatever. And because I think, if I remember rightly, she got a pretty hefty amount of hush money.
Yeah, he was a shriver, I think.
Shriver, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
including Shriver on that side of the family.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's a whole nother story. All right. Well,
Yeah.
we've wrapped it up on Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy Onassis. And
Yeah.
next video, we're going to move on to Marilyn Monroe. I don't know how extensive that's going to be, but we'll definitely dive into that. All right. Well, thank you once again for coming on the show and
Amen.
sharing your life story with us and all your knowledge.
Glad to do it, and I hope America makes good use of it now
Right?
and in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, my brother. Thank you for being here, and we will see you in the next video.
Yeah. Have a blessed one, everybody,
Yes.
and have a Merry Christmas.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays,
Matter
everybody.
of fact, you know what? Sometime this is Christmas Eve.
It is.
A short story of the true story of Christmas.
Okay.
And I shared this with Fox 10, and they loved it because when I was a child, I went up and I was at Elks Club, and I went up to see Santa, and I asked him where Rudolph was, and he said Rudolph swallowed a cracker and had a sore throat and couldn't be there. And I was singing when I was 4 and 5 years old, and I sang Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer a cappella to about 3,500 Elks at an Elks Club convention. Got a standing ovation, and I came back to our table, and my brother was under the table, and he said, "You embarrassed me." And then a little bit later, we went to the bathroom, and he told me, he said, "There's no Santa Claus." And I was upset. And I went to my dad, and I said, "Dad, John told me that there's no Santa Claus." And my dad sat me down, and he said, "Son," he says, he says, "I don't want to lie to you." And he says, "But there is a Santa Claus. It's just a little bit different than the world looks at it." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "The original story of Christmas, there was a guy in Israel, and his name was Nikolai. And Nikolai loved people. And according to the Jewish faith, 10% of everything you produce belongs to God. That's the tithe. But they also had a deal 25% of whatever you produce was for the poor. And in the ministry would see to the distribution of that 25%. And people could go into the fields and glean 25% of the fields. And he says, Nikolai wasn't like an entrepreneur, and he followed God. And there's another part in that commandment that says, if you really want to get blessed, add a fifth part. Well, 1/5 is another 20%. So I said, a good Hebrew believer was giving not 20, not 25, not 45, but 55%. And he said they believed that 55% made God the senior partner. And as the senior partner of your farm or your business, you follow what the senior partner wants in order to make that business to succeed, and you're going to succeed. And they had stories where basically Nikolai, his fields would produce tenfold what other fields produced. And he was very wealthy. When plagues came, his fields were untouched. And Nikolai started a shoe store and a clothing store. He started getting into furniture, clothing, shoes. He was one of the first entrepreneurs. And he kept doing it the same way. 10% went to the priests and 25% went to the poor. And then he took another 20% for special gifts and special situations where that 20% might be needed, and maybe somebody needed some clothing or furniture or whatever. And so they eventually said Nikolai has a spirit, he's possessed by a spirit of giving. And after a while, the spirit of giving became synonymous with Nikolai's name. And 70 AD, when the Jews were dispersed, they had already started having this celebration that would be a celebration celebrating a season for giving and thanking God. They thank God for the harvest. The original Halloween was actually a harvest festival, thanking God for the harvest. And so then they started having this deal, thanking God for the year and everything, and Nikolai giving presents and all. So when they dispersed, they took this with them, and it became, they decided Nikolai was a saint. So in Germany and other areas, it became Saint Nicholas. And so my dad told me, he said, there is a Santa Claus. The real Santa Claus is a spirit. That's why he lives forever. He never dies. And the real Santa Claus is the spirit of giving. And the spirit of giving can go into every home in one night and touch the hearts of every human being. And every human being who then gives gifts to others, they become Santa's helpers. So the real spirit of Christmas is the real Santa Claus, and the Santa Claus we see in the stores is a symbol of the real Santa. And that's the real, true story of the first and lasting Christmas. So everybody enjoy the spirit of giving and Santa Claus. And God gave us the first real gift of true selfless love, giving his son. And his son gave us that first true gift, laying down his life for all of us.
There you have it, the Saint Nick story. All right,
Amen.
Noel. Thank you, sir. As we close, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, or however you celebrate the end of the
Amen.
year. And we will see you on December
Enjoy the spirit of
26th.
giving.
Yeah, see you Thursday, December 26th. Thank you,
Amen.
Noel. There you have it. Noel Benoist again, another one in the books, folks. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, hit that notification bell, leave a comment below. And if you want to reach me, I am the Fearless Floyd Show across every social media platform. TheFearlessFloydShow.com is my website. FearlessFloydShow@yahoo.com. If you want to email me, mainly on social media, I hang out over on Telegram, so come find me over there if you'd like to interact and communicate. If you have a question or for Noel or a topic or somebody you want me to interview, send me that information. I'll vet it, and if we can potentially get a show, we'll do that. I have some time slots coming up. I will be looking for new guests, new topics, new stuff to talk about. So please send them to me. I will do my best to get them on here for you and, see what we can find out. Dig for the truth. I hope everybody has a safe and happy holiday. You get what you want this year. I know what most of my audience is expecting to happen. Believe it or not, this video is actually recorded on the 10th of December, even though we allude to it is the 24th and it's Christmas. And everything was supposed to happen today in Iraq, and nothing so far. And yeah, it's midnight in Iraq. It's after midnight, actually. I don't know how I got my shirt dirty, but I did. But anyway, thanks for watching. Like I said, another one in the books. Next up, Marilyn Monroe, Thursday, December 26th, the day after Christmas. We'll see you then. Thank you, everybody. Don't forget, we need to keep our foot on the gas for 2026. Don't forget, in the description below, you can nominate. Thank you for being here, everybody. I'll see you in the next one.